Not about that, exactly. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, in terms of you speaking, they want to just, if they wanted to, they could just agree to it. Like, that's what they're saying.
Good evening. I want to call this meeting of the Wendell Town Board to order. I want to welcome everyone that's here tonight. We have a full house. That's always nice to see a big crowd here. Join us, the Chief Bill Carter is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. Our invocation tonight is going to be brought to us by William Harrison of Wendell Christian Church. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Madam Mayor and the Commissioners, on behalf of, and guests, don't want to forget y'all, on behalf of Wendell Christian Church and especially the Wendell Council of Churches, we're pleased to be here tonight.
Thank you.
Please join me in prayer. Gracious God, as we gather together with heads bowed and eyes closed, we come to lift up thanksgivings for our community and the peace and comfort that we experience by living here. You are faithful to deliver us and keep us safe in the midst of a chaotic world filled with hurt, misguided, and dysfunctional behavior. Father, we come to you in prayer, believing that it is your will to heal us from all situations we encounter in life. And we ask now that your intervention to right the wrongs and replace them with love and caring for everyone. Lord, we ask you to inspire and direct our elected individuals at all levels to seriously consider how important and influencing their decisions really are. Don't rush to decide just for expediency, or fail to remember every decision, small or large, impacts someone. And lastly, never forgo fairness for popularity to those who entrusted you to make decisions on their behalf. In closing, we pray and intercede for our leaders and their families and all those in authority over us in any way. We pray that the Spirit of the Lord rest upon them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Okay. Motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We have several people signed up for public comment tonight. So I want to take a moment to remind you that you have a 3-minute time limit. The light will turn green when you start talking, and it'll turn yellow to give you a little warning, and then red, and your time is absolutely up. So the first one is Jim Hentham.
Jim Hurley?
Hertham, sorry.
That's no problem. My name is Jim Hertham. I live at 601 Green Willow Circle. I'd like to say hello to everyone. I don't know anybody here, but hello. I had an unfortunate incident this weekend at my house, my wife and myself. We had some neighbors that I could say we've been trying to put up with for a while. They have some children that like to ride skateboards up and down the road, head first, feet first, on their feet, all over the road. And they're constantly, I live on a corner, I live on a corner, so they're constantly coming into my land, my wife's land, and I don't like it. Maybe I'm not a nice person for not wanting them in my land, but I just don't want them on my land. I'm sorry, I don't. And I had to call the police because one of the adults came over and had a couple of comments to me because I actually videotaped a couple of them going up and down the road head first on a skateboard. And I called the police, they came over, and he said it's kind of a gray area for them to be riding their skateboards on a public road like that. And I can't believe it's a gray area. It's either legal to do it or it's not legal to do it. And all I asked him to, if it's not legal to do it, please uphold the law. Or whatever you want to call it, a law, ordinance, or whatever they're doing. And it did stop a lot after the policeman left, because he did talk to me and he talked to the neighbor. But I just wanted to bring it in front of the board, the mayor, the police chief, to let people know that my wife and myself aren't happy of what is happening to our property. I don't know if the police chief can tell me, can they legally go head first down a road?
I'd be happy to maybe discuss it.
Okay. Thank you. But that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Regina Harmon.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody's enjoying this beautiful weather. I know I am. Time to go get some ice cream. Number 11 on your agenda tonight, I'm not sure if this is open for discussion, but I know this is for the board to take action, and I'm really not sure which way this is going to go. I'm interested into hearing what it's going to be talked about tonight, but just in case this is going into a negative area where we're going to put some kind of rule into effect that we're going to harm animals or hurt birds or stop. I thought this town was like a bird sanctuary, and I thought that we didn't allow anything like that to happen. And then I noticed this on the agenda, so I'm not sure how it got on there or what we're trying to change about that. But if this particular item on the agenda is about trying to stop birds from flying downtown or doing whatever, that people might think that it's causing problems to their property, we need to remember that they are animals, and we do need to remember they're God's creatures, and that I hope and pray that we're not going to change an ordinance to hurt or do anything to harm an animal, because if we did that for this, who's to say the next person's not going to come along, or ever how this came about, and say, well, I don't want dogs on my property going to the restroom, and we're going to have the right to kick, hurt, beat, shoot, or do anything to a dog or a cat or something like that. And to me, if this is going to take it to that extreme, and I don't know, we're changing the rule to do something negative. Again, I don't know what you guys are going to talk about tonight. I just happen to notice this on there, and I don't see that it's up for discussion. It's just for the board to take an action. So I wanted to make sure I at least shared with you my concerns over. Wendell's always been pro-animals, and I hope we continue to stay that way. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Next one is Ray Hennett.
Hi, I'm Ray Hennett. I live at 205 Dogwood Trail, and I'm here to praise the commissioners. I'm 71 years old. I've lived in Wendell about 65 years. If you ask the average person who's lived in Wendell a long time, what's the worst thing about Wendell, they would say, Lakewood Drive is not paved. We have had a lot of unpaved roads in Wendell, and I want to thank the board. You have paved Anderson, you have paved you've paved several. But when you paved Lakewood Drive, you really did something, I think, very nice. It is, if you haven't seen it, it's nice and paved. It's got curb and guttering. It's got sidewalks on one side. It looks very nice. I'm sure the people who live on this drive, who have suffered for years with a dirt road in front of their house, they must be ecstatic. So for me, it doesn't affect me one way or the other, but I want to say thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, all in favor?
Aye.
Right. Item number 4 is the fiscal year 2017-2018 Town of Wendell budget. All right, come on up here, Butch.
Madam Mayor, members of the board, on May 8th, the town manager brought to us a balanced budget, and on May 22nd, the board received public comments during the public hearing. So we're here tonight to, staff is asking for the board to vote on the budget ordinance that's in the agenda packet. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer anything that you may have.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Kay about the budget? Comments?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the budget for the fiscal year 2017-2018.
All right, we have a motion to approve the budget. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Item number 5 is the Wake County First Amendment to the interlocal agreement on the consolidation of building permitting, building plan review, and building inspections of all Wake County public school system construction and renovation projects. Ms. Piner.
Madam Mayor, members of the board, the town of Wendell currently has a contract with Wake County to review our building permits inside our corporate limits. Not all of the municipalities in Wake County have such an agreement. Some have their own departments. And so about 10 years ago, as we moved through the county and are looking to build additional schools at the rate that we are, the municipalities came together, put together this agreement that Wake County would handle the building inspections for all the schools. That way it would be consistent throughout the county. Well, 10 years has passed, time has flown by, and now they're looking at signing this agreement. Again, there's really no substantive changes at all for the town of Wendell because we already have an agreement that Wake County is going to be reviewing our building permits. It's really not a change for us. It's more of a change for those towns that do something differently. So it would be our recommendation, it has worked well for us, is to continue our agreement and to move forward with the agreement that you have before you. Again, the only thing we've really changed there is the date.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Piner?
So the other amendments, or the other articles included with the changes, those don't affect us in any way?
I think that I saw one area that said they had changed from page 2, they had the word development, and they struck through that. On page 2, the dates changed from 8 to 18, and one is the current one with the strike throughs, and then the second one is actually a clean copy for signature.
I guess my question, where they were doing the clean, number 3, where it strikes an entire section, I don't have the reference document, so I couldn't see what was being stricken there. I'm assuming it's applicable to another towns where they have
those, and I apologize, I don't have it in the copy I have before me here. I'll be glad to send that actual section back out, but there's no, like I said, substantial changes, but I'll be glad to get that to you if we need to wait till the next meeting.
No, I've looked at the general statute it references in the next one, and it looks like it's the other. I was just making sure that you guys had reviewed those sections to make sure that we weren't affected.
Right, the general statutes were put in, they did have, before we did this originally, put in place so that we'd have the ability to do this. There are really very few changes.
Any other questions?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion I guess we would be authorizing Teresa, or town manager, to be extending the contract?
Yes.
Is that the motion? Okay.
Yes.
And make a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into a contract for another 10 years with Wake County.
So I have a motion to authorize the manager to enter into another contract. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Item number 6 is discussion and action on a Wake County Transit Plan agreement that requires local adoption. Mr. Bergmark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. As stated, this is dealing with the Wake County Transit Plan and a few agreements that would need to be signed by this board in order to take advantage of our portion of that. And the agreements are structured so that it would actually be the manager, you'd be authorizing the manager to execute those agreements. So on March 27th, we briefed this board on the FY18 Wake County, or Wake Transit Work Plan, which begins implementing the Wake County Transit Plan that was adopted in June of 2016. This gives funding through July 2017 to June 2018, the first year of tax collection. The Wake County Transit Plan permanently relieved Wendell of its responsibility for supplying a local match for the Go Triangle express bus service that at one time was costing us as much as $2,800 annually that serves us and Zebulon. It also goes, the work plan, FY18 work plan, goes further by allocating an additional $4,200 to pay for Wendell's park and ride lot lease, which the town's currently still paying for with local tax dollars. This is structured as a reimbursement, so we would pay it up front and then be reimbursed. And you have the attached operating agreement as attachment C, so that's one of the documents that would need to be approved, and that essentially just lays out our specific costs and reimbursement, which is just the $4,200. But in order to receive those funds, all the municipalities are being asked to sign the agreements by this fiscal year. So the other two documents is a master participation agreement, and this basically serves as the master agreement that references the governing ILA and sets up the other agreements, and establishes standards for the different parties, and also serves as evidence of the parties' approval of the Wake County Transit Plan and the annual update process of the work plan, and just kind of carries out what the responsibilities of the different parties are, and of the Transportation Planning Advisory Committee, which I serve on. The second document is the vehicle registration tax interlocal agreement. By signing this, we're essentially agreeing to allocate all current and future vehicle registration taxes towards the implementation of the transit plan. Right now, this really only matters if you're a transit provider. We don't have our own transit service that we provide, like Go Triangle or Go Carry. But if we ever did start to implement our own bus system in the future, it would essentially say that the vehicle registration taxes would then go towards that if we started such a system in the future. And the third agreement that I already mentioned was that operating agreement that covers our $4,200, our specific project that would be covered under the work plan. So you have attachments of those agreements as attachment A through C of the report. And attachment B actually represents an amendment to the original vehicle registration tax ILA, which was signed by just select parties, and then they decided they really needed to go ahead and get all the different municipalities to sign it, even if they weren't currently running a bus system. So you do have that original as attachment D, just for reference. That doesn't require any kind of action. Be happy to take any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Bergmark?
Let me make a motion to approve the town manager to execute agreements with the Wake County Transit Plan agreements. Wake County.
Did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, question. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So, David, the high points there, we waive, or they now waive the $2,800 annually from the bus, and then in addition to that, it's $4,200 for the park and ride lot.
Correct. That's, and there are opportunities, there's going to be community funding areas where we could, try to apply for matching funds in the future as well. That's not, we're not signing anything to that, but just that also exists out there as part of the Wake County Transit Plan.
But the waiving of the matching funds has already been taking place previously. That's not new, it's just continued.
Are you talking about of the 28?
Yes.
Right, yes, that part's already taken care of. This is now adding an additional benefit of the 4,200,
Right.
basically the parking ride lease
That's
cost.
something we've already been, through grant funds or whatever, it's kind of changed around, but.
Yeah, this is essentially just kind of securing it in place.
Right.
There wasn't really a guarantee that they couldn't ask for that again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so we have a motion to authorize the manager to execute the agreements. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Were you a aye down there, Mr. Joyner?
No,
You, all opposed?
no.
No, okay. Item number 7 is a public hearing on proposed amendments to Chapter 2 and 12 of the UDO to allow electronic billboard with specific standards.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mark?
So as stated, this item is a text amendment modifying 2 chapters of our UDO to allow electronic billboards. And both the applicant has submitted specific standards, and then the staff and planning board have weighed in on that as well. The applicant in this case is Fairway Outdoor Advertising, and we do have a representative of the applicant here tonight. So again, Fairway Outdoor Advertising has expressed an interest in constructing an electronic billboard along US 64. They've recently constructed a similar billboard in Rollsville near the new bypass. So currently, Chapter 12 of our UDO, which handles signage, prohibits billboards of any type. We do have obviously existing grandfathered in or non-conforming billboards in place, but we don't allow new ones to be constructed currently. So as a result of that, they're looking to try to change those rules to submitting a text amendment to that effect to amend these 2 chapters of the UDO to allow electronic billboards. And there are, as I mentioned, specific standards that address things like location, height, the operation size, and things of that nature. A similar process was taken in Rollsville in order to allow them to have the one constructed that was built. And you have a copy of the Rollsville standards as attachment C of your report, just for reference. So the proposed amendments provided by the applicant are included as attachment A. In general, what their proposal would do would be allow electronic billboards in our community center or CC zoning district along US 64 and portions of Wendell Boulevard as well. Fairway Outdoor Advertising proposed a 3-mile separation requirement from other electronic billboards, stated that the billboard signs would be anywhere from 12 to 50 feet in height and have a sign face of up to 672 square feet. And they also proposed to remove a little bit of language in Chapter 2 that just references the prohibition of billboards. When staff reviewed this, we did come up with some proposed amendments to what the applicant originally suggested. And this is partly based on our consideration of their proposal, as well as looking at Rollsville's ordinance. So you have what staff's proposal for amendments is included as attachment B of your report. So the notable changes were the inclusion of a 10-foot minimum side and rear setback from property lines. The applicant did not have any type of setback requirement from the property lines. Originally, staff had actually proposed 10-foot front, so all sides, but after discussion with the applicant, we decided that we didn't really need that front setback requirement. That wasn't the main concern, so we removed that. So the front setback would remain at 0 feet. The second change was amending the allowed locations to also include the commercial highway and manufacturing and industrial districts, but prohibiting it along Wendell Boulevard. We thought it'd be better to really focus it along that future interstate, the main road 64, and not have it coming into along Wendell Boulevard, along the town in that direction. I think part of the creation, or part of the reasoning for having it as originally proposed by the applicant was to just open it up a little bit more so it wasn't limiting, couldn't be considered spot zoning where it could only be allowed in 1 or 2 places. But by opening it up to more zoning districts, but still keeping it along that one corridor, I think we accomplished the same thing in a way that is better for the community. The third change was the inclusion of basic landscaping standards. We just put a requirement in that 12 shrubs would be required if the base of the sign was visible. They didn't have any kind of landscaping standard included as part of their proposal. Rollsville had a landscaping plan requirement as part of their approval process. So that's part of what spurred this. That's one thing that the planning board didn't really agree with in their recommendation is they didn't recommend having any kind of landscaping requirement. And the fourth change between what staff came up with compared to the applicant is to amend the separation requirement. It's 3 miles in both the applicant's version and staff's, but we wanted to make it apply to any electronic billboard, even if it was so that someone couldn't go half a mile away along the road in county jurisdiction and build one, and then we could have one, and then there could be another one in the county jurisdiction, because you can jump back and forth between the county and us if you're out along those major roads. So this would just make it apply in that way, where if there was one half a mile in the county, that would still affect a new one coming up in Wendell's jurisdiction. So at their May meeting, the planning board voted 4-2 in favor of amending these 2 chapters to allow electronic billboards. They did have slightly different language. You have that as attachment D, but just to kind of sum up what the differences are between what staff had suggested in the planning board is the planning board did want to modify the separation requirement to be 2 linear miles apart along the same side of the road rather than 3 miles apart, regardless. So in the planning board's proposal, you could have billboards that are across the street from each other, directly across the street, but along the same side of the street, it'd have to be 2 miles apart. And the only other change was dealing with the shrubs. They were not in favor of requiring any kind of landscaping. So we do have a statement of comprehensive plan, consistency and reasonableness included as part of your ordinance, which references principle number 5, which is promoting Wendell's attractiveness to businesses and people of all walks of life. Staff is still in favor of the language that we created. Again, the differences between the planning board and ours really just deals with the separation requirement and whether or not there's any landscaping. So I'd be happy to take any questions, and again, we do have the applicant here as well.
I have a few questions. North Carolina General Statute 136, Article 11, would seem to prohibit almost all outdoor advertising, with few exceptions. And under what exception to that law would this, and I'm gonna guess the sign that was erected in Roseville, under what exception to the general statute do they fall under that allows them to be placed on the side of a highway?
I'd have to research that. I don't know the answer to that question.
How much do you know about the sign in Roseville? I mean, if I pick your brain about it, or was it just given as a visual example?
I already knew it existed beforehand. I looked up a picture of it just to get an idea. I got a copy of their approval through the special use process, but that probably sums up, what conditions they applied to it and the process they went through.
The special use process?
The special use process. I don't know about building permit.
They went through Roseville, or they went through the State Department of Transportation?
I don't know what their process was through DOT. I just know what their approval process was through Roseville.
Okay. I would like to be sure that before we go to passing laws, and you may be able to speak more to this than I can, but
I think the applicant can probably answer that question, but my understanding is that that's particularly dealing with DOT. This would be a piece of property that's owned and taxed, or not owned, but is within the corporate limits of Wendell, is taxed by Wendell, so thus we have the authority to approve a billboard. Whereas if it was a DOT or a county property, you'd have to go through their versions. Obviously, the state doesn't completely prohibit billboards because there's still a thriving billboard industry. But there certainly are restrictions. This piece would be because we have the land is within our jurisdiction.
I'm no lawyer, and I think everybody knows that. But the way I read it is it says, even if the billboard is built in an urban area, if its intent is to be seen from a primary or interstate highway, it is prohibited. And so, all authority that we get as a town comes from the state. I think we found that out the hard way when it comes to residential design. The houses are built inside the city limits, but the state told us that we couldn't do anything about it, or we couldn't have any say over what they did. So, if one was built in Roseville, I'm gonna guess it was built legally. I would just like to know what the exemption, under what exemption it falls under. And I do realize that billboards are a thriving industry, but I haven't seen a single one built along 264 since it's been open between Raleigh and Wendell. And my understanding was because the state prohibited it being built. This is completely irrespective of whether or not I think a billboard's a good idea. I want to make sure that we're not chasing something down a hole that's not going to be legal.
I'd be happy to look into that with the assistance of the town attorney.
I was trying to pull the statute up.
Possibly the applicant.
I got that.
Are there any more questions?
I didn't see the answer to that statute.
I didn't either. So that was my only question.
Just a comment I have, I'm going to agree with the planning board on the shrubs. I see no need in landscaping at the bottom of a sign that's supposed to draw your attention to the billboard. And as far as 2 miles or 3 miles, I'm okay with the 2 miles as well. I mean, to me, that seems like a sufficient enough space.
Okay, and the ordinance that had attached did have our language in there, but we can easily just swap that out with the planning boards if that's the consensus of the board.
Now, are we only limiting the billboards to electronic billboards? Because I did read Roseville's.
Correct.
And that was kind of their thing, only electronic billboards. So
Right.
are we saying only electronic billboards at Wendell?
Yes, one of the standards for it is that it has to be a digital or smart board. Yeah, it can't just be a standard billboard.
What's the reasoning for not allowing just a standard billboard?
I think one, I guess they saw it as maybe more, well, it's very arguable with something like a billboard, whether or not you consider that more attractive or not. It obviously gives you more capabilities of changing the message more. I'm sure the applicant, if he was up here, would mention that it allows us to do like safety alerts, if there's a missing child or whatever, that it creates that possibility of changing the text copy much more easily for those type of things. But I'll let him respond to that more fully.
One comment that I have that I think we need to keep in mind is that we just 5 minutes ago approved a budget with wayfinding plan money in it, and I'm concerned that 2 miles, 3 miles, however many miles, that we may crowd the field and not be able to put our own sign out there. And it's part of our wayfinding plan, so that's something I think we might want to consider. And a way to do that would be maybe to start with fewer, smaller, until we do more. That's just something for y'all to think about, until we know what our needs are going to be out there as well. All right, any other comments?
Go
ahead.
David, just with some of the rezoning and the different sections, so as it is now, or as it is supposedly to be approved, in what areas could these billboards be constructed?
So basically, just along our jurisdiction, well, as far as how we have control over it, along US 64, so starting at exit 427, which is Wendell Falls Parkway,
Yeah.
and then going out along, well, we don't actually have it along Marshburn Road, but as we expand,
Right.
as we start to get more jurisdiction out that way, we don't quite get all the way to the edge of the interstate along Marshburn Road. Those are kind of what I see as the two bookends. Right now, we don't quite get all the way to Marshburn
Right,
Road.
so we're just allowing this along the interstate, whatever you
Yeah.
call it, that corridor there.
Just along that one corridor.
Okay. And then as far as the, just the setback, just to make sure I'm visually clear on the setbacks. So he was saying, he had 0. You guys came in and said the front would say 0, but the side and rear would say 10, correct?
Right, and that's really just to give an adjoining property owner just a little bit of space. I mean, how much does 10 feet affect you? It's almost more mental than anything else, to be
Okay.
honest, when you have a billboard that's that big and that high. But I could see a property owner not wanting it to be sitting on the property line, so we were just trying to give a little bit of separation. Now, along the Along the road itself, there's, we weren't really as concerned about that, especially because the pole is going to be sitting, the pole's going to be centered. This is from the edge of the billboard sign, which is going to run perpendicular to the road. So the actual pole will still be quite a distance from the edge of the right-of-way.
Yeah, so when you say front, you're meaning from the sign to the road, that is what you're.
Correct.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
make sure I'm clear. And I agree with, Commissioner Meyer, I thought the shrubs were a little excessive. I would just assume keep it at the 3 miles, as far as versus the 2, but, that's just my thoughts.
Okay.
And one more quick question. As it currently stands from exit 427, and I realize that's a mile marker, to Lizard Lake Road, how many miles is that?
I looked that up before. I mean, you're going to be roughly, would that be roughly 5 miles or so?
And so if we had a 3-mile buffer, this would be the only sign allowed. I mean, it'd be in the middle, and you couldn't get closer than 3.
Probably, if it's placed where we're talking about. That's part of the reason for the planning board's discussion over lessening it. We do have to keep in mind, though, that you never know what might happen in the future. But yes, if this one was placed where they're discussing, that might prohibit it until our jurisdiction expands a little bit.
Yeah, my thought was just rather keeping it at 3 versus, and then changing it.
I was just asking
Yeah,
if
no,
it was at 3. If it was at 2, you'd still maybe at most get one more,
Maybe, yeah.
maybe one more sign. Perhaps one, each end past that, but.
Yeah, I think at 2,
That was just my question is, it's fine to say 2 or 3 miles when you have a 100-mile stretch, but when you only have this much and you put one in the middle, it kind of knocks everybody else out.
Mayor? To answer Commissioner Boyette's question, or this may answer it, I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with the Roseville sign, but in 136-129, there's 6 exceptions listed. And the 2 probably most likely ones are, one of them is for an area zoned industrial or commercial, or an area unzoned. The others are kind of specific, but they seem to be kind of general. But again, I'm not familiar with the Roseville sign in particular.
Thank you.
The area we're talking about, this sign, is it zone commercial or industrial?
Yes, it would only be allowed in 2 commercial and 1 industrial districts.
Okay.
Public hearing is now open. If anyone wants to speak.
Well, hello, everybody. It's me again, Regina. First of all, the company that's doing these signs is awesome. They're a great company. They're all over the state. Every sign that I've ever seen of theirs is done very well. I will give you that. Of course, I'm in marketing, so I'm in favor of this. I think it's a great thing, but there's limitation. We are a small town, and I would like to see his signs come here to help promote our businesses better. But you guys brought up some great points. How many? Where to start it with, not to be able to take away from our own Wayfair signs that we want to do. I would very much like to see this. I'd really like to, even work with him to do these kind of things. My question is community center zoning area. I'm not sure what you consider that as. I can get with David and ask that. But there's just a couple other things that I think you should consider. The height. Some places we need higher ones, some places we need lower ones, so when you put it in your paperwork, make sure that you distinguish between how high and how low it can go for visibility for traffic driving by. To give you an example, out there where we used to have the sign right past Hepzibah Baptist Church, there was a billboard sign out there that's recently been taken down. That was the perfect height for coming into town. But some of these you're talking about will go up even higher. Now, they do that based on trees and things like that. But this company, they're a really good company. They have a great reputation. They're all throughout Smithfield, if you ride up and down Brightleaf Boulevard, coming in on 70, you're gonna see quite a number of their signs, or driving to Goldsboro, or even out on the, highway where what's that thing, that shopping center out there in Smithfield, what do they call that? The Outlet Mall, he's got quite a number out there. So I'm totally in favor of this, of course, but there is some exceptions. How long the message will stay up there if it's electronic. We had this conversation with our own electronic sign. It doesn't need to go up there and turn within seconds, because then people are trying to look at the sign. It needs to stay up there long enough in order for people to see it so accidents aren't caused. And then, of course, the height, that's very important. And then again, the only last thing, I haven't turned yellow yet, so I got a few more minutes. Don't turn it yellow on me just because I said that. Is the number of signs that can be put up in our town to start with. I think, we have four ways coming into this community. We're growing really fast out there towards Wendell Falls coming in. That'd be a great area. Of course, out there where the one by Hepzibah, that's a great area. But we don't need to come into the downtown area or the road coming in, and y'all mentioned that Wendell Boulevard, because, the closer you come in, the higher they've got to go up and things like that. So, but again, this is awesome. You have no idea. I really like this idea, and then I hope that we do it the right way, so we're looking at our future, not the moment. That's the big thing. Let's look at our future, not the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the board. My name's Aaron Guyton. My address is 322 North Cypress Street, Wendell. I'm very excited to be here tonight and be doing this in my hometown. And I thank you for your comments on Fairway. We are a great organization. I've been with them for over a decade now. And I want to address all the questions and concerns that I've heard so far. But this is something unique for me, because I get to go around the nation and do this all over. You're looking at the guy that got the Rollsville sign done, and I live here. I raised my family here. I want this to be an integral part of the community and the community messaging, and I believe that the proposal that we put forth addresses a lot of the concerns that have been mentioned. I do want to speak briefly about the benefits of this type of technology, and why I'm excited to have it in my hometown. Digital billboard advertising is truly a community partner, and what I mean by that, and the mayor brought this up, the town has an interest in bringing commerce off the streets, and what we do is partner with communities. You could call Mayor Ingalls. Brian Hicks used to work for this town. He's now a town manager up there. And so one of the things that we do is we provide public service and public messaging, and that's specifically dedicated for the community in which we serve. If I can, I'll give an example. But if you look closely at, and this is the parcel we're considering, but this actual design on this image here is currently live on Rollsville's digital billboard. So the community of Rollsville gave me a phone call, and they said, hey, we've got a 4th of July parade coming up. We want to promote it. I said, absolutely. Obviously, we don't charge towns anything to do such a thing. And I'm on Cypress Street. I live in the downtown area. I'm thrilled about the business that has been flourishing in the downtown, and I'm excited to see that prosper more. And so any town messaging that needs to occur to get folks off the highway, we will do that free of charge. We reserve one of our digital spots for public messaging, and we're vital community partners. I also say that this technology is amazing in the fact that we are partners with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I'm sure something the police chief would be interested in. Anytime an Amber Alert is issued, we have agreements set in place that they literally take over our digital network, stop all advertising for an hour, which is what law enforcement considers the golden opportunity to find an apprehended child. And we show a picture of the child, vehicle description, additional pertinent information. And that is something that your law enforcement community could have The FBI, we do a partnership with them for wanted individuals. Obviously, anything that the law enforcement community in the town of Wendell would need, we would be able to do that in a moment's notice. I'll address, Commissioner Boyette, that statute. That is a regulatory provision. It stems from the 1965 Highway Beautification Act. And what it is essentially saying is that, yes, you can have billboards as only if an area is zoned industrial or commercial. So the prohibitions that the North Carolina Department of Transportation is required to uphold, actually, those provisions go to residential, unzoned, ag properties. Outdoor advertising is not allowed on those types of parcels. So this particular type of parcel, it is allowed. The question of would we have to get a permit? Yes, we would. In Rollsville, we had to get a permit. So, I mean, outdoor advertising is regulated at all 4 levels of government. I've got to adhere to the 1965 Highway Beautification Act, NCDOT regulations, and statutes in the North Carolina General Assembly, and then whatever local zoning jurisdiction that the parcel of land is in. And so obviously we wouldn't be going through this type of effort if the NCDOT was not going to issue us a permit at this particular location, which they very well will. That's kind of an overview. I'll be happy to take any questions. I've been in this industry for over a decade and consider myself somewhat of an expert on the subject matter, so I'm here as a resource as well. I urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Paul White, and I'm the property owner. If you want to ask me any comments, my chief interest, and I want to verify with you, the town does get 2 signs to publicize. That's what I'm interested in. I do get the lease to property, but it'll pay about half the taxes. What I'm interested in is something that would promote downtown, and the town gets safe.
One spot on each side is dedicated towards public service, so you would have a constant public service on both sides of that time.
I'm looking at the ability to promote downtown, to promote July the 4th, to promote the Harvest Festival, the things we want, just like we have a digital sign coming into town. This would accomplish that, and that's what my goal has been with it. But I am the property owner. If I can answer any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Okay, thank you.
I'll sit down.
Ray Hennett, 205 Dogwood Trail. I'm here for the other side of the coin. All I see is downtown Boulevard. Wendell does not need any additional signs. We have got them everywhere. And I can see this sign going up, and then in a year or two, there'll be somebody else that wants an exception to this rule, and then there's somebody else we want another rule, exception to another rule, and we'll end up being downtown Boulevard on Wendell Boulevard. I ask you not to do this. Thank you.
Mr. Hennett? Or staff? The text amendment precludes any signs from Wendell Boulevard, correct?
Yes, as stated, that's
Thank
correct.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Public hearing is now closed. All right, gentlemen.
I'll speak to the sign for a moment. The option for us to use the sign as a means of attracting people to Wendell, as well as the public safety use of that billboard. But mainly for me, it's when people are riding down that highway, because of past decisions by previous boards, the highway's a little bit further from downtown Wendell than maybe it could have been, but it's hard to get people to get off that road, turn on Wendell Boulevard and come down. My hope is with the budget that we just passed, this sign will be used to get people off the highway, and then our wayfinding signs will be used to filter people throughout the community. I don't see this as an either or, I see it as a complement to, in regards to the shrubbery and whatnot. I think that it's probably good to keep the shrub piece in there, as written by staff, where the base of the sign is visible. In this particular instance, it'd be my opinion that the sign, at least from that picture, the base wouldn't be visible. But for instance, if they were allowed on Wendell Boulevard, which they're not, and they were, say, the Hespa sign, where you're looking up and seeing it, I would like to see the landscaping there. I think the 3-mile boundary accomplishes a lot of things that the people on both sides of the issue want. And as a couple people have brought up, we don't know what the future holds for other roads or widening projects, be it Marshburn or otherwise, coming through there. So making that 3-mile back to the original suggestion to make it a 3-mile radial prohibition, that would be my recommendation, but I think this is going to be good. So I'll make a motion along the lines of what Commissioner Boyd or Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem Lute said, with 3-mile radial buffer and including the shrubs, but otherwise to pass this as is.
Okay. A motion for 3 miles and,
Well,
wait a minute.
The radial, that would mean we couldn't put a sign on the opposite side of 264 directly across from this one, right?
Correct.
With this particular sign is double-sided.
Right, I understand that, but to me, I drive a lot on the interstate, and these signs are cramped up all over the place. I don't see where that would make any sense to have a 3-mile radial.
I think it was an attempt to strike a center balance between
Those who
for
want, those who don't.
those who want and those who don't. So you do it. And my understanding is it's an industry standard, generally speaking.
Okay, so we have a motion for 3-mile radial border, shrubs underneath where its bottom is visible.
Where is visible.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion?
Just to make sure we're taking basically the planning board's recommendations in. I was making
I
sure
was
that,
just tweaking staffs.
I'm sorry, not planning board staff, I'm sorry. I misspoke there.
Yeah, it's my understanding this would follow staff's recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 miles and shrubs. Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Item number A is a continuation of board discussion, text amendments to chapters 2, 3, 10, and 19 of the UDO relating to outdoor and indoor event venues.
All right.
Mark?
This, as you just said, is a continuation of a text amendment that we discussed at a previous board meeting, and so I'll try to cover more what's new, but I'll be happy to go back through anything that the board wishes. This affects 4 chapters. This came about as a result of an applicant's request, Joshua Furr, that related specifically to what we're terming an outdoor event space, but staff has included some additional related recreational uses for both indoor event space, a stadium, arena, as well as an outdoor theater. So as stated, Joshua Furr is the applicant. He is present tonight. He's purchased property at 1408 Marshburn Road, and he's actually recently closed on the property just north of that as well to have approximately 30 acres. He could tell you the exact acreage. What we're talking about is not his specific case, but it is a good frame of reference as part of this text amendment review. Right now, the UDO doesn't have anything to really address these types of uses, so that's why we came about to add these uses into the UDO, as well as modify one of the uses, which was meeting facilities that we did have, to kind of make it fit with the rest. Let's see. So again, his specific use, we were looking at classifying as an outdoor event venue. One of the comments that was made during the last meeting was desire to just have this be listed as a special use permit being required in all districts. So that is one of the changes that we made. One of the benefits of that special use permit process is it allows you to kind of make modifications based on the size, location, nature, and the impact of that and its adjoining uses. So there are a number of benefits of doing that to kind of review it on a case-by-case basis, because sometimes what might be appropriate on a very small lot in a downtown area, if you try to create standards specific to that, it would not work on a large tract in a largely undeveloped area, and vice versa. We have contacted Wake County to address how such a venue might be regulated by in their jurisdiction. They've indicated to staff that the proposed use would either be classified as all other outdoor recreation entertainment or a retreat house / conference center, depending on the presence of buildings and the location of the activity on the site. The former requires a special use permit proceeding through the county in any zoning district, and the latter requires a special use permit in residentially zoned districts, but not within commercially zoned districts. But again, that retreat house conference center, that's really more focused on indoor activity, but I can't promise that they wouldn't ever allow something to spill out. Another thing we included and was sent to you via email was a recent article from April 2017 addressing a wedding venue that was approved in Johnston County near Flowers Plantation. This approval required noise activity to stop at 11 p.m. And then for all activities to cease by 1 a.m. That tract was 17 acres in size, had 2 banquet halls capable of serving up to 500 people, but one of the provisions of that was it didn't allow a permanent outdoor stage. And that 11 p.m. noise limit does correspond with Johnston County's noise ordinance as well. And I included, as one of the attachments to this report, noise ordinances for a handful of jurisdictions, Wake County, Johnston County, and then 3 or 4 municipalities. So following the public hearing that we had for this item, we made a number of changes based on the input that we received. The first was that outdoor theaters required a special use permit in all zoning districts. Previously, it was permitted with additional standards in some of the districts that it would be allowed in. We also added language regarding the changes to time limits on noise based on some comments that the attorney made at the public hearing. We also referenced the town board's ability to limit the presence of a permanent stage for outdoor event venues. That's something that hasn't been really directly discussed, but that was something that we saw in the Johnston County case and thought it might be of interest. So that language is currently in there. We could, of course, take that out if the board didn't like that language. Again, that's just to limit having a permanent stage for the outdoor event venue use, which is different than the outdoor theater use. The fourth change was, we of course gave you examples of the noise ordinances just for reference. Currently, the way the text amendment is written, the decibel limits are not included as part of the text amendment. Instead, that would be established as part of the special use proceeding. So you'd look at the context of where it's cited, how close it is to adjoining uses, what those adjoining uses are, and then set a decibel limit as part of the special use proceeding. There was also a question about the separation requirement, which was listed for outdoor live theaters. And I believe it was Commissioner Boyette wanted to kind of get an idea, a visualization of what that would mean if you had a 200-foot separation from the property boundaries for that type of use. So attachment D gives an example. The area in red is the parcel in attachment D, and the kind of blue box, the box inside of it shows you the area that you'd be able to use for an outdoor theater. You can kind of get an idea of how much of the land is used as a buffer in that case. So I could get back into this as much as you want to, but those are really the changes that we made. The only other thing I wanted to comment on is following putting together this report, the attorney suggested that for the stadium arena use, that we include some verbiage that basically talks about how, as part of the special use proceeding, we might evaluate things, factors, and put conditions that address things like parking, hours of operation, noise levels, and things of that nature, buffering, separations, requirements, just to kind of solidify and make clear our authority to create conditions to address those things if needed. So again, we have the applicant, well, this isn't a public hearing, but we do have the applicant here tonight. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Brookmark?
Debbie, can you parse out, I know that he's made a pretty narrow request, and then as a result, so how we separate those two?
Yes, so in my mind, his type of use for an event center that, to at least a certain degree, what he's conceptualized is focused on weddings, although he doesn't want to restrict himself to just that. I see that as falling more within the outdoor event venue. It could still have music, but it's not a place that's set up to just serve for outdoor concerts like a Walnut, Creek or something along those lines, or Red Hat. I'm glad you brought that up, because if there is a greater consensus on that item, we could act on just one part of this for the outdoor event venue, and discuss more about the other items. But the other items I just saw as having potential for having, the other outdoor items at least, having potential for more higher intensity of activity if it's a Mud Cats or a Red Hat or a permanent outdoor theater. And then the other uses are ones that, while we were looking at event venues, it just kind of begged the question of, well, what would this be considered, and how would we address, what if somebody wanted to do one indoor? And so rather than have that unanswered, we tried to go ahead and address creating the use for an indoor event venue and having some standards for it as well.
Any more questions from Mr. Bergmark?
Can we hear from the applicant again in regards to what he wants, exactly his plan for the property?
Sure. I think there's a question for you.
Great. Hello, Mayor, Commissioners. Joshua Furr, 1408 Marshburn. Now also 0 Marshburn. I didn't hear the question.
I would just like you to lay out your intentions for the property and
Sure.
your business plan on this.
Okay.
Because it seems like a lot of land for just a wedding venue.
Yeah, correct. And going back to when I first acquired 1408 Marshburn, I didn't have this vision, I didn't have the vision yet. So what I did was I wanted to speak to the neighbors, speak to business owners, speak to residents about their thoughts. And I just want to thank everyone for helping me along the way. David, Patrick, a lot of people with businesses in the area have really helped me out. So to answer the question about the rest of the property, I'm going to follow the lead of the city. I was blessed to get this opportunity to get the property, and unlike the previous applicant, Savvy Homes, who would come in and build, and it would be good to build the city and community, I'm here for the long haul. They were here to make money and then move on. I believe in what they're doing, but I believe the building single-family homes needs to be done in a higher level of quality. So I would definitely be open to working with the neighbors around to develop into single-family homes. But if there is anything that the community has in mind that would benefit the area, I'm all ears, because this wasn't originated for a business plan for income. It was actually just something that I thought that the area needed and that I had a lot of interest in. So I don't have the answer to what the rest of the property is going to be. I do want the other side of the property to be annexed into Wendell, so you all can have the decision of what happens to it in the future. But real estate or some type of venue is what I have in mind. Residential on part of it, but right now I don't have any of those plans. I wish I could answer it better, but
And I just wanted to add that again, we're establishing the text amendment. If the next step, if this were approved, we'd then have the ability to have things like an outdoor event venue, and Mr. Furr or really anybody at that point could then submit for the special use permit process. So at that point, he's going to have to come to a decision on exactly what the boundaries of that activity is going to be. It maybe only a part of the land he owns, it could be all. So he'll kind of establish that and submit a special use permit application that would come back before this board to set specific conditions relative to his property. He would also have to annex property in if he wants access to that water that he needs. And if it's incorporating the northern tract that he recently acquired, he'd also have to rezone it because it's under the county jurisdiction. So there would be a number of steps following this as it relates to Mr. Furr's property moving forward.
I definitely believe in quality over quantity, and I know there's some concerned residents in the crowd here, and I went to the city first before this plan ever came in and started asking questions. So I really do want to preserve the beauty of this area. I do believe it's going to grow in a positive way, and I just want to be a part of that.
So as it sits right now, walk me through if I
Sure.
wanted to have a wedding on
Sure.
your property tomorrow or
tomorrow.
next month, whatever.
Sure, I can walk you through that.
Where would we park?
All right, do you have a picture of the land?
I can bring one up.
All right. All right.
My concern here is that the recently acquired property now becomes a parking lot that we're packing
Got
thousands
it.
of people in for a beach music festival or
Yeah,
whatever the venue is.
last thing, yeah,
That we're just not set up to handle.
Sure, understand. I understand.
All right, well, while that's loading, I'll try something else.
All right, so, well, you know, if you're looking at 1408 directly at the front door, so you have the creek here, and then you have Pastor Bill's behind me, and then Dr. Eford's property that I just acquired. Before I acquired that property, really the vision was the same. So you have it's almost up, the front yard area with two entrances. Can you zoom in a little bit?
Not on this.
No? Okay. So, all right, well, okay. The house is there beside the purple area. I would like to cut in a new entrance left of the house to where it came in behind the second structure there, or took the place of that second structure carport. So it went through the woods use as very little road frontage as possible, and come in right on the left-hand side of the property where this carport is, and then have a walkway to go out to the field. But I'm up in the air about where the actual pavilion would be. Some people say it would be better use to be closer to the house, and some people think it would be amazing to have it near the pond to get that vision. But it would be house, separate drive, parking lot. Where the carport is, I would build a indoor handicap accessible bathrooms, and then the pavilion would go either at the beginning of the field or right before the pond. So really, I haven't factored a whole lot in with the other piece of land. I do not, well, I can tell you this, the reason why I originally bought the Eford property, the Zero Marsh Burn, was because I was worried about a lot of development, and even though I'm in the business, I'm here for the long haul, and I was scared to death that homes would be along the pond and all of that. So I wanted to preserve as much space from the pond on just to be designated for these concepts. So, and then the rest, I haven't got that far. Other than building a house for a family or working with neighbors to do another concept, I don't know. And I have people that are more experienced in, the design, but David knows I'm all ears for, recommendations. I think I know the vision, but once we get, people that really specialize in design and architecture, then we'll have a better feeling. But as of right now, I don't think that I would go too much past the tip of the pond.
How,
And use little, I'm sorry.
what's the maximum number of people you expect to have at any
You know,
single event?
The typical is anywhere from 150, a big wedding would be 250 to 350. But I'd like to have the opportunity to host an event up to 300 or 400 people, but that's very unlikely unless we get to the point where city planners and, I go and just ask questions. They, wow, we would like to have an artist come in here and there with approval. Then I'd like to be able to accommodate that.
How many vehicles does it take to get 300 people to
Well,
a wedding?
I believe it's one vehicle per four, and then I guess you guys were talking about the bike lane last time. So one vehicle per 4 people.
One vehicle per 4 people.
Yes.
Every wedding I've been to, I've gone to with one other person, but that's just me.
I'm sorry?
I said every wedding I've gone to at a venue or anywhere, it's basically been my wife and I. And
Yeah, you're right.
so
These
that'd be
numbers are
2.
just coming off of
So-
examples of surrounding.
Okay, so, but if we use your numbers,
Sure.
then you're looking at, what's that, about 75, so that'd be about 75, 80 vehicles?
Yeah.
How many acres does it take to park 75 or 80 vehicles?
I was told it's going to take around 2.
2 acres,
I believe so.
park about 80 vehicles. Okay,
I could, once again, don't quote me on that. If you want me to get back to you and, get a precise number. But I believe that's what we were
Are you looking at,
calculating.
you looking at paving that parking area? or
That's
leaving
another
it
thing we
grass?
brought up. I really would like not to take away from the land by paving it. I'd like the opportunity to have natural or pea gravel, something like that. The Sutherland is a top-notch venue, and they don't have pavement or asphalt, and it's beautiful. So it works out very well for them. That's the vision. That's sort of what we're trying to follow. So.
I have a question for our attorney. Can we restrict the amount of people or the type of venue during the special use?
Type of venue?
Right. So,
Type
like
of event.
Commissioner Carroll said, I don't want this thing sold as a wedding venue, and then on the weekends, you're not booked for a wedding, you're having a cover band come in.
Oh, well, no, yeah, that, yeah, if you want to set guidelines, I'm a rule follower, so the
That's what
vision was,
That's what I'm asking our attorney, if we
Yeah.
can set those restrictions during the special use.
Or would it be better to do it now?
Well, the definition is pretty broad.
Yeah. I would do it now. Pass it, it's passed. Sports arenas, I mean,
I just think there's a big difference between a wedding band versus, hey, I don't have anybody booked this weekend, let's call whoever.
yeah, I
and
agree, and,
charge $5 a head, whatever the case may be.
correct.
There's a difference in those two
Yeah.
events.
I'd love to have that be a case-by-case scenario that you guys could or could not approve.
You might get there by the charging piece of it.
Admission?
Not ticketed, it's not a ticketed event, it's not an item where you have to pay an entry fee.
I like that.
I've never been to a wedding, I haven't paid any.
so prohibit ticket
So
events
beer prices.
across the board.
We have a separate rule for that for the community center. I mean, all your rules change based on if it's you charge admission or.
We can do that special use.
And none of the uses that are listed in the definition are typically thought of as ticketed events. There are celebrations, birthdays, weddings, reunions, retreats, conferences, maybe festivals. I think of a festival as a
So you have Thanksgiving or Halloween or anything that would be along those lines for kids to run through the pumpkins, or, whether you prove a one-day swap meet, who knows? Not swap meet, I mean someone that, if you've been downtown Raleigh and you see artists go up and down Hillsborough Street, just have art fairs and things like that.
Is that a wording that we could easily add into this?
I'm not sure we can do that on the,
Not on the fly. Is it worth it to the applicant to postpone it to make sure that we got it just right?
For what side of it? What side are you?
For the, prohibiting or requiring a temporary permit or of something of the sort for ticketed events.
I don't see a problem with that. Once again, I want to respect, the city and your opinion. So if that's something you feel comfortable with, I'll follow your lead.
I think it seems like it would make most of the board more comfortable with something like that.
So if it was a band or something like that, you'd have a ticketed event that we get a special use permit for?
Again, we're
I understand.
working on the wording, and we're.
Yeah. I've learned a lot during this process, and I know this is a new scenario so I'm learning with you.
The bigger part of that question was, is it going to severely harm you if we put this off for another 2 weeks to make sure that we got it correct?
It won't severely harm me, but it will put a lot of people on hold that have been patiently waiting. Spent a tremendous amount of money to where we are right now. So, in all due respect, I would really like to give good news to local people that live here that want to be involved, that a lot of you know. I want to keep it within. I want to grow with you guys. But I've sat on this property for 2 years now, and I've not leased it out or anything. I'm really just trying to find the highest and best use for both sides, and we'd really like to get started.
How important is it to you?
All right, I'll say this. Yeah, I think my concern, I love the idea of an outdoor wedding event. I went to an outdoor wedding this weekend. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. It was fantastic. It wasn't rowdy. It was, we were all leaving there by 9:30. So, I mean, I don't see an issue with the outdoor wedding. I think our concern is it's getting it to be a big blown out, party field. And then it's more of a disruption than it is, or it's something that's not well regulated.
This is not intended to be a beer fest location for kids and drinking and driving and all of that.
And I don't doubt your intentions at all. You seem very straightforward and open and honest. The sports arena stadium thing seems a little excessive. That's not something we really want to address at this time here. I would just say remove that point. But as far as if we're handling each thing on a special use permit at a time, as far as when the plans come forward, then I see no problem just making a motion just to approve the changes to the UDO.
Does that mean outdoor wedding?
We're talking about without any restrictions on ticketed events.
That's right.
We couldn't leave that off because we don't want to rush it.
Well, that's right. I don't see where a ticketed event would make a large difference.
Is just for clarification, is your motion just for the outdoor event venue or all of them? Because you mentioned you had qualms over the stadium arena.
It has all these in it.
Yes, so.
So you want to leave off the sports
Yes,
stadium?
so all but with the exception of the sports arena one.
Okay, understood.
I'm sorry.
So it's a motion to adopt the amendment of the ordinance with the exception of the sports arena stadium portion.
Correct.
Is that right?
Mayor, just a point of clarification, Mr. Furr is concerned about timing,
Yes.
but you understand you still have a
We still have to go through
special
another
use permit
process
to go
get
through.
the timing approved, yes.
Okay.
Probably
Which
why
is
he's trying to
a
move.
make it or break it deal for this concept. But I do understand that. A couple, I don't know if they're the best comparables, but North Hills, when Kane did all of that, and they have a little amphitheater in front of the Harris Teeter. I have some properties out there, and it doesn't, it doesn't put a burden on any of the neighbors there. And then, I don't know if Wendell Falls is a great example, but they do have outdoor, and I don't know how many, I haven't heard of anything or seen anything online that, people have really badmouthed that scenario. So, I'm in real estate, so I try to get, use comparables. But the venue that David brought up before, that's a prime example of the vision we have. And we'd like, all windows to be open with your support.
Okay. So we have a motion to adopt the ordinance or the amendment to chapters 2, 3, 10, and 19 with the exception of the sports arena stadium portion. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Is that everyone? I couldn't hear. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much.
You did? Okay, we had one. I'm sorry, you got to get my attention.
I was opposed to that.
Okay.
I was just
Okay, so it
favoring.
was 4-1. Mr. Meyer was opposed. We already had the public hearing.
Yeah, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
No, that way or, no, mm-mm.
On the last one.
All right, item number 9 was continuation of board discussion to consider the request by Savvy Homes, and that's been withdrawn by the applicant. And then item number 10 was a continuation of board discussion to consider satellite annexation, which has also been withdrawn by the applicant. And now we're on number 11, which is a proposed text amendment to the Town of Wendell Code of Ordinances, Chapter 4, regarding establishment of bird sanctuaries and prohibition against hunting birds. Chief Carter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. We'll bring this back before you this evening after some conversation at the last meeting in an effort to, I think, address some concerns that may have been in the proposed original version. A North Carolina General Statute provides that a city may adopt, create, and establish a bird sanctuary within its city. And when that's been established, it's therefore unlawful for any person to hunt, kill, trap, or otherwise take any protected birds within the city limits except pursuant to guidelines issued by the North Carolina Wildlife Resource under their applicable statutes, or under any other license or permit to the Wildlife Resources Commission specifically made valid for the city. And the thing to remember here as we come before you this evening with this is that certain birds are not considered protected under federal and state law. And the 3 most common birds that are listed in statute and other materials from the Wildlife Resource Commission are the English sparrow, pigeons, and European starlings. All other birds, most typically that we would see around here, do fall within the protected species, so we're limited in what we can do. The thing is, the current ordinance that actually was adopted back in 1956 pursuant to state law is a little bit unclear in terms of any mechanism to eradicate birds should they become a nuisance, and that is specifically the unprotected birds by federal or state law. Accordingly, in my contact with Wildlife Resource Commission, they have simply stated that the depredation of unprotected birds could be subject to a town's individual ordinances, whatever that might be. Periodically, the reality is non-protected birds nest and roost in and around structures. I mean, it's part of the natural interaction, but in certain limited situations, they congregate in a manner so as to constitute a nuisance and or menace to public health or property. The ordinance brought before you tonight is an attempt to create an environment where we can use experts and try to address these matters. So it will be providing for depredation permit techniques to be utilized to eliminate hazard-causing birds. And basically, the ordinance is written from its police chief to authorize a registered wildlife damage control agent, and as a person who's been through training through the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission, to eliminate the birds in such number and manner as deemed appropriate. The ordinance would require that that person hold current liability insurance as it relates to that business and activity. Written notification of these activities to adjacent and/or affected property owners might be required at the discretion of the town, and it would be a permit-type situation that would be valid for 30 days. I've had some interaction with wildlife damage control agents, and one of the things that, in researching this and coming forward and presenting it like this, would be many of them are going to tout, basically, we're going to look for non-lethal ways to get rid of the birds in question if they're causing harm before they move into anything else, such as making the area inhospitable is one of the most common things. But it's a combination of tools that need to be available should the first steps not work. So that was the intent of the ordinance as written. And you have an attachment that shows you, of course, on the left-hand side, how the original one was, and then what the proposed changes are to that ordinance. Happy to take any questions you might have with regard to the ordinance as presented.
I can definitely see the need to update it. When you read it, it definitely says 1956, and it's not 1956 anymore, so I understand that. But it would be my hope that, and I don't want people to think I'm being silly, but I want an aggressive manner to be a last resort, you know.
And in my research, that's typically what you find from the damage control agents. They're going to try the least aggressive means first. And if it works, whether it's noise, whether it's, I mean, we've all seen things about using...
Rubber snake.
Yeah.
I have them in my house.
And the key is, I think, it's a moving scenario because they tend to become accustomed to anything to a certain point.
I'm concerned that, you know, we are bird sanctuary, and whether they're protected or not, I don't want to all of a sudden be, the thing about birds is when some go away, some more come. And I don't want this to turn into an ongoing situation.
Well, I mean, you know, I can tell you, if approved as written, my intent will be to meet with or to discuss with the damage control agent exactly what have you done to start with. I mean, I agree that for a variety of reasons, that they need to be the least invasive approach possible.
Yes, that
And those
would be a last resort.
Those approaches have to be taken by the wildlife agent, not just any homeowner.
That is correct. As written, it would be required by that registered damage control agent, which the Wildlife Resource Commission maintains a list of those available at all times, and they go through training that satisfies their requirements, and then they understand what they can and can't do for the law.
I mean, I can certainly understand that they are creating havoc in some places, and I understand that. But I also see the other side of the coin as well, and I feel protective of our reputation out in the world and make sure that we're doing the right thing. Okay.
I got a question too.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Are there any current situations that we know of that would require this type of enforcement?
Yes, there are. And
so that's what brought this up?
It's what brought it to our attention in an attempt to help this particular property holder address a problem, and when we began to research it, we found that we didn't really have any means at all. It was kind of, our ordinances as written in 56 were silent on it.
What type of bird is it?
Pigeons.
Chief, what's so special about birds? Why, if someone had a problem with a possum or a raccoon or a snake or rats or anything else, then they have way more leeway to deal with that wildlife issue than they currently do with birds. So even with allowing for these certain species to be dealt with in a little bit different manner, killed, relocated, then they still enjoy much more protection than nearly every other animal in town. Is that right?
They do in a sense because that protection is derived from federal law. They're protected under there's a Federal Migratory Bird Act. There are several different federal acts that do declare them as protected.
Birds are a protected class.
And then the other thing, quite frankly, is you mentioned the other wildlife that may become a problem, bearing in mind that, a person's individual efforts to get rid of an animal, particularly in a more aggressive means, could result in them violating an otherwise existing ordinance in town regarding the discharge of a weapon or a pellet rifle or anything like that. So, that's kind of, to answer your question in short, yes, birds do enjoy more protection because of federal law.
Okay, and will this rule in any way affect the town's ability to address the ongoing vulture problem at the water tower?
The short answer to that is no. I mean, we have been in contact with federal regulatory agencies, and both, wherever you prefer to call them, vultures, buzzards, or whatever, are in fact a protected species.
We can call them pigeons if...
My eyes aren't quite that bad yet. They're getting there.
I hope
No,
not.
they're not, no.
Because I heard they had also come back.
And they do periodically, unfortunately. And that the federal agencies communicate the appropriate steps to take in an effort to get rid of them in the least harmful manner to start with.
So seriously, the point I was trying to make is that even with this change, birds would still be vastly more protected than almost all other animals because considered nuisance are not in town.
That would be a fair statement.
It's not going to be open season on birds.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
They have fan clubs, like Audubon Society. There's no parallel for possums.
It's just different. They've been protected over the years, and neither one could a person, if you found a snake in your yard, you still can't shoot it. Well, no, you can't, can you, Chief?
You still could be, you would be in violation potentially,
You
but.
you can deal with it with a hoe. That's what I do, but you
There are
can't.
the possums, by
Mayor
the
Pro
way.
Tem Lutz, would
I
you
know
please
you can drop
motion?
one on New Year's Eve.
So,
All right, I make a motion to approve the proposed text amendment to Town of Wendell Code of Ordinance as chapter 4.
okay, we have a motion to approve the ordinance to amend the town, code of ordinances. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Make sure I don't have any. Yes. Item number 12 is update on board committees by town board members. The first is the Triangle JCOG, Mayor Pro Tem Lutz.
Lutz.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm new here. I'm new here, it's all right.
I say it wrong every time, so you know the answer.
At the last Triangle J meeting, we nominated the officers for the 2017-18 year and adopted the budget.
Okay, great. The Fire Advisory Board, Commissioner Joyner.
The last fire board meeting, we discussed the upcoming county budget and what that includes for Wendell, as well as the planning for the Wendell Falls Station.
And the Technical Review Committee, Commissioner Carroll.
Last TRC meeting revolved around Wendell Falls and 6A, parcel 6A and 6B, roughly 40 lots that they had geared towards one of their current building teams, going to be larger lots and a higher end price point. So.
Thank y'all. Item number 13, Commissioners' Reports. Commissioner Joyner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to comment now rather than earlier on the budget and the budget process this year. This is a budget that will fund more. I will cite a recent Eastwake News story and kind of call its bluff on taking one line from the town manager's presentation and using it as the headline. This budget funds a lot of priorities. This budget funds increased leaf service with a new leaf truck, increased people for our public works staff, which has been an ongoing issue. We're going to have more people on the ground helping them with the tremendous work that they do. Increased funding for Parks and Rec, increased funding for the police department. If there was a need set out when we set out after this budget, the town staff did a strong job in giving us financing options as well as operating options, as well as long-term options on how to solve those things. And I commend town staff. I think most would agree that I tend to nitpick on things, and you will note a lack of nitpickiness on this budget. And that's a direct reflection of us giving the town staff a charge with the rate we wanted to see, which is no tax increase, and then our goals that we wanted to see. So I did not feel like I was in a position to ask for something, have that given to me, and then criticize it in any way. But I do think this is a good, sound budget. Lots of things going on in town. Hope people continue to be engaged. I will highlight again that so the earlier public hearing brought up a point I made last time when there was questions on whether or not there was a public hearing on this. Yes, there was. It was on May 8th. That was the same night that the town board held a public hearing on the budget. And there was like a grand total of 3 people in the room, and I think 2 of them worked for the town of Wendell. That's just not acceptable. It's not acceptable for us as a board because we're not engaging people and getting them here. It's not acceptable for the townspeople not to be overseeing. And that leads me to my point on East Wake News. The letter that has come out from their editor saying that there will no longer be a true East Wake News. It will be a, for lack of better terms, paid promotion sent out to litter the sidewalks of eastern Wake County. You notice tonight that there is no one here that's going to walk up to us afterwards. So everything I just told you about the budget could be completely inaccurate, and unless you read the budget, you wouldn't know, and there's no one to call our bluff on that. So that's my personal request for news agencies to continue to cover small towns and local governments, because this is the accountability that's needed. And I'll end my comments tonight, Madam Mayor, with the success that we've seen in our past 2 budgets. I think there was some that doubted last year's budget strategy. That's proven to do well. This budget's worked well. There's a lot going well for Wendell. And thank you for Mr. Hennett for pointing that out. But then there are some places where we don't have oversight and we don't have people in town that want to step up and check us on that. So what I want to make clear tonight is that in July, I intend on filing to keep the seat that I was appointed to because I feel like we're working well together. I feel like we're moving things forward, and I feel like that at least in the realm of accountability, it's important to keep all sides engaged and involved, and I intend on doing that.
Thanks. Commissioner Boyd?
I'll echo a lot of those comments. I was also disappointed by the turnout. The night of the public hearing of the budget, I actually took a picture from my seat here, and I think there were 5 people and 4 of them worked for the town. And the one other person who came was from the Rape Crisis Center, for the Domestic Violence Crisis Center, and they came to thank us. Interact for the money that we gave for the budget, and there was also a new planning board member who came. I've said my piece about the budget. I'm disappointed it doesn't include merit raises for the employees, and I think it's been employees have been salaries underfunded for too long, and I would have liked to have seen merit raises for the employees in there. I would like to have seen allocation in there to do something about town hall. For 4 years I've been here, and it's always, well, maybe we can make it through a few more years. And we put some money in this building, and it looks nice, but it's still an old building, and without a complete rehab or a complete new town hall to completely house the staff that we're going to have in a few years. This building's just, I don't think it's going to continue to serve us into the next 10 years. And so I would like to see some money to at least move forward on that. I would have also liked to see some money towards the public safety station out Wendell Falls Parkway. Had comments from both fire and EMS personnel wondering where's Wendell's commitment at, and we're moving on this, and it seems like the town of Wendell is not, and so that was something I brought up. Last year's budget, was that we need to start looking towards setting money aside so we wouldn't have to come up with it all last minute. And, it's something I wanted this year and it just didn't happen. Am I happy that in an election year, we're not raising the tax rate? Yeah. But that's, you know, that's not always the right way to go. So, that's all I have to say about the budget. I am still, as of yet, undecided whether or not I'm gonna run for reelection. July's quickly approaching, as are a number of other things, but, I've enjoyed the last 4 years here, tremendously. And I do think this board works really well together, and I think we agree 90% of the time. If we agreed 100% of the time, I've said this before, only need to be one of us up here, so, that's all I have.
Commissioner Myrick?
Nothing tonight.
Mayor Pro Tem Lutz?
I just wanted to also just to echo those same thoughts to the town for their hard work on the budget, and it was balanced, and it did a lot, and I agree with Commissioner Boyd. I also would have liked to say merit pay. I think it is nice, but what we didn't give him merit pay, I thought we gave him in more manpower, more equipment. You know, I guess it could have gone either way, and still been in trouble, but I thought it was a very good budget, and so yeah, so that was a good budget. Just a reminder to the citizens to keep active in the town. There's a lot of events going on this summer, and to keep using the Tail Wendell app. It has a lot of good resources on there. I know with the holidays and recycling stuff, it always kind of reminds me too as well. So, and I also, like Commissioner Joyner, will be filing for re-election next month to continue my seat here on the board. So, that's all.
Commissioner Carroll?
I'd also like to echo the praise of the town staff and our board here on reaching the budget. And that's year 2 that taxes have not been raised, so that's something to be proud of in my book. And as far as merit raises for the town staff, I agree, I'd like to see it, but where the money's not there, you know, if there's any way that we can create a legal way to do it, I'd be happy to forfeit my $4,000 annual salary, and I would challenge the other 2 commissioners to do the same. Really, everybody that wants to join in, if you know, if it means that much, let's just donate our money to them.
All right. I have a couple comments. I agree that we need to be looking towards the police presence out in the Wendell Falls area, but we just got an email, and here's a copy of the memo, and the most recent price is $927,000 for our portion of that. So that's why we haven't done that yet. So, I mean, you know, we got to get that reeled in a little bit. I'm very pleased with our budget. I'm very pleased that we have not had an increase in the tax rate. I don't think there's been an increase in the tax rate since I've been on the town board. I'm very proud of that. I want to thank the staff for their efforts. They have been nitpicked. Commissioner Carroll does, Commissioner Joyner does nitpick them, so he does. And the result of that is that we have a great budget. We've getting ready to put in place some steps where we can work towards merit raises possibly. That's something we haven't been doing now. As far as the new town hall goes, you know, I know this is an old building, but I think we've done a lot of really great things with it. And I, for one, as a taxpayer in Wendell, don't want a $5 or $6 million building. We're not there yet, in my opinion. I want to remind you real quickly that Big Truck Day is coming up on June 24th at 11 downtown, and it's a great family event. Bring your kids, it'll be a lot of fun. The Grass Cats that were scheduled to play at the Art Walk, the outdoor part of the Art Walk, Spring Into the Art Walk, was postponed, and they will be there as well, so it's going to be a really fun day, even more fun than last time, so we'll have some music and things. I encourage you to come to that. Today, this morning, very early, so I'm a little sleepy today, I went to the East Wake High School graduation. I was invited. They're so efficient, there was a thank you note for me being there on my desk when I got here today. So I'm very proud of our young men and women at East Wake High School. I can't help but, and these young men on the board with me aren't old enough to have these experiences yet, but you can't help when you hear that music to reflect on your own family and your own children and my own sons. And I'm very proud of those boys and girls, and to see the faces of their parents and their aunts and uncles and grandparents. It was just a wonderful day. Everybody was very proud to see how their children had accomplished a lot, and I'm very proud of them and of East Wake High School and Stacy Austin. He's really doing a lot of wonderful things out there, and I encourage you to go out and visit. It's a great place, and they've put in a new track. They're remodeling some inside areas, doing some facelift things. I've encouraged them to get some signage because it's a little discombobulated out there, but it's looking a whole lot better, and I'm just very proud of what it's turning into, and it's a wonderful reflection on Wendell. I also had the opportunity today to meet a young lady out there, Megan Faircloth. I don't know, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of her. She's graduated this morning with a 5-point-something GPA, the highest in the class. Of course, you know, everybody deserves a trophy days that we're in now. They don't do valedictorians, but I assume she would have been the valedictorian. She was the highest GPA in the school, and during her time in high school, for several months and various periods of time, her family lived in their car. And she has been on ABC, CBS, national news, and I'm just very proud of her and her tenacity and her perseverance. I know that hasn't been that long since my own sons were in high school taking AP classes, and those are very challenging under the best of circumstances. So I congratulate her for that and for how well she did. And I'm very proud of her. She has a full ticket to Stanford University starting in the fall. So she's going to do some great things for Wendell. We're all going to see her again. I guarantee you we're going to hear about her again. So that being said, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we're adjourned.
That was great.